it's so refreshing, because I thought you were going to come here today and like you hear all of these podcasts with all of these nutritionists, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you've got to have a routine, it's so important. And actually what you're saying is, let's just be real. Should we be filling up our supermarket trolleys not just with food, but with Gaviscon, omeprazole, Buscopan? Should we space our meals out? And what are your views on alcohol during this time? Are there certain drinks we should be avoiding?
I know full well that if I say to my patients, you must stick to a rainbow diet, only drink clear spirits, I won't see them again.
Few days of eating over Christmas, like what impact does that have on our gut afterwards?
I am a nurse consultant in gut function, basically. So what I do is called biofeedback, and it is a hybrid therapy. So it is a mixture of gut nursing, behavioural therapy, counselling, pelvic floor, physiotherapy, nutrition, supplemental advice. So it's a hybrid therapy which focuses, the main aim is to improve gut function for people who are experiencing bowel symptoms.
Okay. And that could be any type of bowel symptom?
Yeah. So I always give my patients the same advice when it comes to managing Christmas. And I always say, don't worry too much about what you eat between Christmas and New Year. Worry about what you eat between New Year and Christmas. So to be completely honest with you, a week or two of overindulgence is not going to hurt you. And this is my opinion. So it's based upon 20 years of being a specialist and also my own experience, because I like to be very honest with my patients about things. I think eat as mindfully as you can. You know, food is the fuel for your engine, and you don't put diesel into your petrol car. It can happen. Don't feel bad about it. But I think try to be mindful, enjoy the food, chew your food, you know, try not to mix your drinks too much. But I think don't worry about it. It's a week of your life ultimately. And the whole thing about the social engagement, about the enjoyment, about the interaction is far more beneficial for your gut health actually than what you're eating, because we do know that when it comes to the microbiome, stress is one of the things that affects it the most. So I would say that being social, being around people, laughing, joking is better for your microbiome than worrying about how many vegetables you're eating over the Christmas period.
My concern is that that time, like a weekend or a few days of eating over Christmas, like what impact does that have on our gut afterwards?
Well, in the short term, you're potentially going to get indigestion, aren't you, and dyspepsia. You're going to feel potentially constipated, bloated, sluggish, but long term, you're going to be fine, aren't you? I think, you know, in terms of the longer term effects of that, you're going to feel a bit rubbish, but I don't think that means you should swerve off enjoyment. I have to be honest.
Okay.
I think, you know, some of my patients like to fast after Christmas. They'll do intermittent fasting after Christmas. I think the cornerstone of it is when the indulgence is over, go back to the things that you know work for you. So, you know, plenty of fluids, move, because when you move, your gut moves, you know, go back to eating healthier. But would I want to relegate anybody to a strict dietary modification over Christmas? No.
That's actually quite enlightening, because I thought you were going to come in and go, don't eat this, don't eat the chocolate, don't have the alcohol, don't have the bread, don't have the pastries, don't have the processed foods that we all buy, the canapes from all of the shops, because a lot of people don't actually, you know, the celebrations last for a few days. So I'm not going to stand there in the kitchen cooking for 3 days. I'm going to go off to my local supermarket and buy all of those warm-up canapes. And I know for me, though, I feel pretty crap. I almost like have a hangover from the food, because my body isn't just used to all of that processed food in that short space of time. The other thing is, when you talked about movement. Would you advise people to, I mean, I know we might go for a walk, but should we keep up our exercise regimes during that time? Or do you just think just actually, you know, just let go? Because you talked about stress.
Well, I mean, stress in the microbiome, stress in the gut. We know about the gut-brain axis, don't we? I mean, 20 years ago, we didn't know how closely linked the gut and the brain were. We didn't know, we had very little to offer. We knew that stress, depression, anxiety affected the gut, but we didn't know how. Now we're understanding a lot more about the signals between the brain and the gut, about the microbiome, which governs a lot of that signalling, about the impact of a disruption in the microbiome and mood, immunity to illness, disease, inflammation. So I think knowing what I know, and I read a lot, I've written a lot, I am a specialist, not in gut health per se, in gut function.
Right. Okay.
So I am not a microbiome woman.
Okay.
That is not the thing I would label myself as an expert as. I'm a hybrid. So basically what I do is a cross between nursing, dietetics, pelvic floor physiotherapy, counselling, behavioural therapy. So although I'm a nurse consultant, actually there's lots of different disciplines which come into what I do. Okay. I myself am quite a pragmatic and realistic person, and I know full well that if I say to my patients, you must stick to a rainbow diet, only drink clear spirits, I won't see them again, because you have to be pragmatic and realistic about what you're expecting of people. That's one of the reasons that I do a lot of the things that I suggest I will do myself, so that I can help patients make an informed decision. I won't sit in judgment upon people and say, well, are you eating 10, fruit and vegetables a day? I like to be practical, and I like to make things workable and manageable. In terms of gut health at Christmas, the best thing you can do is enjoy yourselves.
But it's so refreshing, because I thought you were going to come here today and you hear all of these podcasts with all of these nutritionists. You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. You've got to have a routine. It's so important. And actually what you're saying is, let's just be real. Let's be real. You're not going to do any of that, are you? You're actually going to live your life the way you should, but expect these symptoms, expect these repercussions, but actually what you can do afterwards, let's look at that.
Yeah, I mean, let go of the reins, have a few days off.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Just let go of the reins, live and let live, enjoy. You might get constipated, you might get bloated. There's many ways to manage this. I think being very unrealistic and controlling and judging other people about what's manageable and pragmatic is wrong. I think, you have to be realistic, and you have to be understanding and compassionate about what's realistic for people. So for me to sit and say, you must not mix drinks, I mean, that's not advice. That's advice I wouldn't take.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say it to my patients.
I think it's brilliant. It's honestly so refreshing, because I didn't expect this conversation to go this way when you're talking about gut health. And okay, so let's think about this. So I'm going to have my Christmas. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm not going to get stressed out about the food, because there are other stresses that are going on at Christmas. People have kind of, sometimes families are difficult when everyone gets together. You're saying just let your hair down, embrace it. But then what happens on January the 2nd? What do I do?
Probably made your New Year's resolutions that you're going to prioritise yourself this year, and health is wealth, I would imagine, because that's what every woman says that pops into clinic to see me in the new year. I think that's when you can work out what works for you. And I mean, we were talking this morning, weren't we? As you get older, you learn what works for you. I mean, we're all beholden, aren't we, to Instagram and the posts, and this looks remarkable, I should try this new supplement. But I think the beauty of being a middle-aged woman is that you have learned quite a lot about yourself. And from years of experience of dieting and controlling your nutrition and mindfulness and years what works for you. And I think it's about essentially finding those components, putting them together, as long as they're practical and manageable, and running with it. Going with what works for you, I think. We know the main things. We know you must try to drink enough fluid. You must try to avoid stress. If you are in a situation that is stressful, find a way to manage it.
Yeah.
Move, because when you move, your gut moves.
Yeah.
You know, the very simple, basic principles that I hope we all try to live by. But don't get stressed about it, because stress is the worst thing you can do for your gut health.
Yeah.
Because of the gut-brain axis. You release adrenaline and cortisol, you get wound up. What happens? It affects your gut motility and your microbiome.
If you're finding this episode of Real Women's Stories useful, don't forget to follow or subscribe, because we've got so many more past episodes for you to watch or to listen to, and we've got so many more to come. Do you know what? It actually has taken me back to a time. It was Christmas, and I went to the gym on Christmas Day morning at 6 o'clock in the morning to do my cardio. And that day, I was adamant we were all going to this lovely restaurant at this golf club. We'd all spent a lot of money because I didn't want to cook. I didn't want anyone to cook. And as soon as I ate my food, I was throwing up, because I now realise I'd stressed myself out. I got up early in the morning. I wasn't relaxed. I was stressing more about my fitness and my health. And then when I went to eat my food, it completely had the opposite effect on me. And I honestly, because I remember I was sitting, it was literally as soon as we'd finished, I went in the toilet and I threw up. And I just said to Adam, we need to go now. And I said, why? I said, because I don't feel well. I got out, I ran out of the taxi, and then I spent probably 5 hours just throwing up, because I'd stressed myself out so much, because I was so disciplined with my diet, my bodybuilding. You know, this was my 2 days where I could let my hair down, but I had to do my cardio in the morning. I mean, how nuts is that?
It's not nuts, it's actually quite common.
Is it?
Yeah. So you were full of your adrenaline and cortisol.
Yeah.
You probably planned it for ages.
Yeah.
Down to every minutiae. And you were full of adrenaline and cortisol and so wanted it to be everything in the right order, and wound yourself up, and your gut just went, no, Lisa, no.
Yeah.
I'm not that, I'm not that easy to control. And certainly the emotion around Christmas, and we know, when you're with families, it brings its own level of stress. The stress should not be what and when I eat.
Yeah.
That's one of the ones you should be able to put on the back burner. But it's not that uncommon that people are so governed by wanting to prioritise health that they lose sight of actually what's important.
And I think now, I mean, I'm far more relaxed with my food now, and I sit down and I eat, and I actually don't overeat. Whereas before, when I was so strict, I would binge. I was hungry. I hadn't tasted chocolate for like months. I hadn't had any sugar or sweets. So actually, it's really about balance, isn't it? It is about balance. And yes, go to the gym, but give yourself some time off. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day. Then slowly get back into your routine, rather than right, I'm now going to get back on the treadmill and I'm going to do some HIIT training, and because you're going to start stressing yourself out. Because if I'm right, your stomach, or is it your microbiome, is your brain? It has its own brain.
They call the gut the mini brain.
Yeah.
So in essence, your brain and your mini brain are always communicating with each other. So it happens obviously at a subconscious level, but they're very reliant on hormones and distress signals from each other. So in essence, if you're stressed and you're releasing adrenaline and cortisol, that can be directed towards your gut, which releases hormones within the gut which send a distress signal, and that's where the link between stress and pain in the gut comes from. And then it gets fed back up the other way, so your gut will send your brain a distress signal. And this is why we call it the gut-brain axis, because they're always communicating, which is why that we're seeing increasingly in terms of gut management, we're talking about meditation, mindfulness, the dialogue that we have with our guts, because it's a bit like they're always talking. Sometimes they have a row.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're literally shouting at each other, and it's about changing the dialogue. And I say to my patients, and they do laugh, there's a bit of eye rolling, talk to your gut nicely. Literally talk to your gut. It's all right, mate, I'm going to put something good in now. I know I'm not perfect, but and they always laugh at me about that because they think I'm a loon, but there is actually increasing evidence about that.
Should we be filling up our supermarket trolleys not just with food, but with Gaviscon, omeprazole, Buscopan? Those are my three go-tos, because the Buscopan, I suffer with IBS. So before, sometimes when I go out for a meal, or I know I'm going to be having a big sort of, I guess, a bit of indulgent food, I will sometimes take an omeprazole before I go out, and then a Buscopan before I go to bed, so I don't get stomach cramps. Is that something? I mean, we will see the gaffers, the Rene adverts at Christmas.
Because everybody knows that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
To most of us, it's a bit of an inevitability. I think prophylactic use of PPIs, you know, so the things that reduce acids like omeprazole, is a very good idea. I think use of things like Gaviscon Advanced, which is my personal favourite, is brilliant. It's an alginate, so what it does is it creates a lining down the esophagus, creates a raft on the acidity in the stomach, and that means that if you've overeaten, you're less likely to get reflux.
Okay.
So I used to be believe it or not, a dyspepsia nurse, that's indigestion nurse in the community. I've done everything gut, and I used to say to my patients, for those times, the biggest dose you need to take is at night, because at night you're going to lie down and your stomach is going to be basically pooling with acid and a large meal.
Okay.
So I would say in terms of taking something like Gaviscon, you need to slug down a big dose at night. And you can do that throughout Christmas. You can slug it down every night throughout Christmas.
So literally start the 23rd, I'm going to line my stomach with Gaviscon, and I have the little sachets, because I usually take two, because they're easier to kind of take down. The bottles, when you drink them, they go all scabby at the top. And then if I feel like in the evening after, when would I take omeprazole? When would I take the Buscopan?
I would probably take omeprazole in the morning and Gaviscon at night. So they're a
Okay.
slightly different mode of action. And Buscopan you can take prophylactically. You can go, I know I'm about to go out and eat a lot of Brussels sprouts. I'm going to pop down. That's perfectly fine. I mean, I think you know yourself. We were talking about this. You know yourself. You know what suits your body.
Yeah.
If prophylaxis helps, use it over the Christmas period.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we've obviously got your advice in terms of go and enjoy yourself, because enjoying yourself is going to be less stressful than obviously not.
It's quite interesting with me. I will chuck everything at a bowel problem. I will rip myself into shreds to try and help people solve bowel problems. But when it comes down to it, I'm a path of least resistance kind of a girl. I really am. And I think weighing up the impact of dietary restriction, dietary modification, denial, on top of the stress of having to cater for so many people and think about everybody else's needs and wants, eat what you want.
Yeah. And
You don't need the stress.
Yeah. And what are your views on alcohol during this time? Is that because obviously we're being told alcohol is poison, it's so bad for you. Everyone I mean, I know a lot of people are going alcohol free now, and that's absolutely fine. You know, I like to have a drink over Christmas. I love my champagne. You know, I try not to do the reds and the whites because I don't want to get a hangover. I'm not great with hangovers. And that's actually one thing that going through my menopause has actually helped me, because I can't drink that much anymore. But I'd like a glass of champagne when I have my canapes, and I'd like a glass of wine during my main. Is that, again, I know you're going to look at me and go, just have it. But are there certain drinks we should be avoiding? Like, should we not be mixing the champagne with the red wine? If somebody has a beer, because beer bloats you out, doesn't it?
If you want one, have one, but it is fermentable. And by virtue of the fact it's fermentable, it's going to be gassy, and it's going to increase the gas in your gut.
Mix with the Brussels sprouts.
Throw in the beer, the Brussels sprouts, you know, all of that. I think for me personally, I try to stick to clear spirit, so gin or vodka, and a long mixer.
Okay.
You know, to spread it out, and drink fluids in between, all the stuff you already know. I wouldn't over mix alcohol, so I wouldn't have champagne on wine and champagne on wine and champagne and go in between the two.
Thing.
Have one and then go to another one, I would say, but don't, and just keep your fluids up generally.
Yeah.
And take an enormous amount of Gaviscon at night and omeprazole the next morning.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, I'm exactly like you, I can't really drink anymore. But a lot of my patients seriously can drink.
Yeah.
And I know it's not going to be realistic to say, oh, just have one gin and slimline, you know, it's just not going to happen. But I think for me personally, I think don't drink anything that's too fermented. Don't drink too much beer, because you'll feel rank with all the food as well.
Okay, I mean that is good advice, because I have been thinking champagne wine. So if I just stick to one, I really hope you're learning to be kinder to your gut listening to this episode of Real Women's Stories. I would love to know your advice for managing your gut this Christmas. Share your tips in the comments below. Should we space our meals out? So, sometimes you go round to someone's and we always used to, it's gone are the days where you'll have 3 courses, because you can't just sit and eat 3 courses all in one here. So we were kind of like, well, let's get some canapes out, then let's have a break and a chat, let's do our main meal, and then in the evening when we're watching the Queen's speech, well, no longer the Queen, the King's speech now, we would then have the sweet stuff. If you space it out, is that any better, or does it really not make that much difference?
Little and often's always going to be better, isn't it? In terms of the fact that it's longer for things to digest and the signalling to get through. So things move more evenly with little and often, as opposed to 3 enormous meals a day.
Yeah.
And that's the same for every scenario. But I'm slightly worried about how incredibly organised you are. I have to put it out there that you actually have a food rota.
My mum's going to hate me for saying this, but she's kind of literally bent over and just let one rip, and everyone's just going, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But I'm like that now too. And it's just like, I don't know, do you have patients coming to you and say, listen, I just can't control my wind, I can't control my gas, especially at Christmas when you're sitting with family and everyone looks at you, and sometimes with your long distance cousins or your aunt or uncle, do people come to you and go, Ellie, like, what do I do in these situations?
All the time. So it's more common in women, actually, flatus incontinence or wind incontinence, because of our pelvic floors. So obviously childbirth can weaken the muscles of the bum hole, as we were calling it, or anal sphincter or anus, whatever you want. I like bum hole. I think it just says everything. Can weaken the muscles of the bum hole. And then, of course, you've got menopause and you lose muscle bulk, fibrin and elastin, and that can make your bum hole weaker. Okay. So it's not that necessarily you're producing more gas, it's that control as you age, and certainly with having kids, can make it more difficult to hold on to, and sometimes impossible to hold on to. In terms of what I would say, I can understand people find that mortifying. Some of my patients are devastated by the fact that it happens. Overall, I would say you can take an anti-flatulent, so you can take something like Windies or peppermint oil capsules or charcoal capsules.
Oh, I love black charcoal.
Yeah, that can reduce wind on the inside. You can't eradicate it. It depends how bothersome it is, but I can understand why, not necessarily around family, but if you're going to church or you're going to a library, or, you don't want for people to hear you passing wind. So cutting it down on the inside is a very good idea. I certainly think pelvic floor and sphincter exercises are a good idea, because they increase the muscle around the sphincter, which can help with control. And I think, if it is a problem, don't put up with it, seek advice. Because I get a lot of patients, so some of the things, and I have to say they're often told these things by men. And I love the opposition. We've talked about the opposition. I love the opposition. I love men. I know them. My son is one, but they told ridiculous things by male clinicians, like, oh, just light a match.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Light a match?
Yes. So one of my patients had really, really smelly wind, and the doctor said to her, oh, just light a match. And she said to me, I can't just go around lighting matches everywhere. And I said, no, you look mad. So, you do have to wonder. And it's interesting how when you open up, other people will tell you their stories. So my friends used to say to me about 15 years ago, oh, your job is it's so disgusting, Brad. It's so disgusting, Brad. I don't know. Let's not talk about it. Now, with the onset of menopause, a day doesn't go by without me getting a text on bowels. Yeah. Not a day goes by without somebody saying to me, what do you think of this? What can I do about this? And it's like, look who's laughing now, girls, because it's coming to the fore, isn't it? People are understanding the importance of gut function in a way that they've never done before. Yeah. So, but I think the important thing is to talk about it. You don't have to talk about it all the time, but talk to your pals, talk to your family,
Yeah.
talk to people about what's bothering you out your bowels, and if you're not sure what to do, go and see a professional.
Yeah,
because there's
100%.
so much we can do about every little niggle that you have with your guts, be it your wind or your toileting behaviours or your bowel pattern or whatever. There's somebody that can
help you.
100%.
Yeah. Oh my God, this has just been so. I guess it just feels like a whole different experience talking to you about, you know, how I'm going to be approaching Christmas now, my mindset over Christmas. And I really hope that people listening to this take your advice.